Hi there, my name is this, and I'm going to talk about this. Now, when we talk about the quality of children's programming, well, there really isn't much to talk about. Most entertainment for kids is just straight up garbage. I guess everyone's fine with it because kids can't tell the difference between a good product and a bad product, right? There's no reason to try any harder on projects that won't make a difference whether or not they're well made, right? That statement couldn't be further from the truth. Children's entertainment is going in a downward spiral, and it's time to put an end to this era of awful. Rather than dwelling on the bad, let's take a look at a really good example and see what they did that made them so great. Today we'll be touching on the industry that will make the biggest impact if it changes. Film. Thankfully, it isn't hard to find a movie that fits my expectations. As a matter of fact, there's a whole studio that does exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to children's entertainment. I don't think I need to introduce you to them because it's more than likely that you've seen all of their movies already. While I would gladly examine what I consider to be the peak of Pixar's filmography, that would be way too easy, and it would really be tough to pinpoint exactly what audience it was directed at to begin with. So let's stick with the original Toy Story, shall we? To those who haven't seen the original Toy Story, I'm afraid you're going to be a little confused. Sorry about that. To everyone else, I want you to remember something specific. Think back to when Buzz is first introduced. He acts like he's actually a space ranger. How silly is that? Now think back to when he sees the commercial of his kind being sold. That's kind of a strange reaction, don't you think? On the surface, Toy Story is about friendship. Sometimes people who have almost nothing in common can still be compatible with each other. It's a great lesson for the kids, it's easy to learn, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. Now, travel at its very core. Toy Story, the G-rated movie allegedly made for the kids, is about mortality, being faced with death. You don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at the evidence again. That reaction I told you about is just another form of an existential crisis. It's where Buzz realizes that no matter what he does, he's not going to impact the universe in any way, shape, or form. How many of us have even come to terms with that? And it's not like this theme wasn't carried on in the sequels. In Toy Story 2, Woody had to understand that being a toy meant that there would be an end. And finally, Toy Story 3 brought us to that end, in the most terrifying way possible. And all these years, you thought it was just about a bunch of toys. So, what's the moral of the story here? What can we learn from Pixar's profound and plastic piece? Simple. Kids' movies don't need to be obstacles that the writers can't get past. If anything, they can be a unique way to approach a very mature topic. However, I don't think that's the #1 reason why children's movies are awful most of the time. I think it's just because of their reputation. When you hear the term kids movie, you think of an animated feature with silly jokes and no character development. When a writer is assigned to a kids movie, that's their mindset, and that's what they'll look at the finished product as. Which brings me to what I like to call the Marriner thesis of children's entertainment. Please excuse the possible grandiloquence in that name. My theory is that the best children's movies aren't children's movies. They aren't made for kids, they're made to be accessible to kids, but they have underlying themes that adults can appreciate. Toy Story is one of the most revolutionary films of all time, and not just because it was a milestone in animation. In my opinion, it set the bar of how provocative a film that was rated G could actually turn out to be. It seems like every animation studio has gone to the computer-generated frontier, but not one has come close to having as much to say to adults and kids as the plight of Woody and Buzz. And that, my friends, is what needs to change.